Hey guys, I'm Phoenix here, and let's talk about the Alex Mayer situation, the developments, and the past. I'll quickly go over the past in case people haven't been quite aware of what's been going on. So, we have this composer called Alex Mayer. Now, she is a transgender. It doesn't really matter too much, but it does kind of link in various ways to the story. So she's transgender, male to female. And she composed like chiptune type, sort of old style sound effects and music for different types of games, mainly sort of the sort of more old school games. She had a certain talent for doing it. She made this stuff for a game called Star Mazer and also for River City Ransom. Now, she decided that when Star Mazer DSP was released and her music and sound effects were in there, that she deserved to be paid for that. Now, as a contractor, she had been paid for her work on Star Mazer, and generally in those situations, the license is owned by the person who's hired the contractor, not the contractor themselves. So there was a bit of a legal dispute there. What she decided to do about this legal dispute was to start DMCAing anybody who'd played Star Mazer or Star Mazer DSP. Star Mazer DSP. On the basis that she didn't really think much of YouTubers anyway, and believed that work was hers. Then it kind of all started to spiral completely out of control as she started to DMCA people for using old photos of her, or birth certificates, or even referring to her as a he. It all got a little bit messy. And she also started DMCAing people who'd played River City Ransom. The idea there was that she hadn't been paid for the work at all, which evidence surfaced that actually she had. In this time, I was following her. I'm not exactly following her on Twitter, but I was monitoring her Twitter, and you could see a sort of a descent in her mental state as she starts sending death threats to people. She called people's houses. She sent death threats to Leonard French and Sid Alpha. She sent emails to Sid Alpha specifically saying, well, I was, breaking you this huge story of how a developer had wronged me, when actually people had been seeing it in a slightly different light. She couldn't quite work out that she'd done something wrong. And when she sent death threats to Leonard French specifically, Leonard French had to do something about it. He was, after all, a lawyer at that point, picked up by Imagos, a copyright lawyer. And through various means, it meant that she had been sectioned, arrested by the police and sectioned under the American Mental Health Act for 2 days. This is someone who is not in a particularly good mental state, and pretty much everyone who was being threatened by her, they weren't necessarily taking it personally, I suppose, but there was sort of indications there that she really did need some kind of help because her mental state wasn't there. And so we then moved into the court case, whereupon she had fired at least 4 lawyers before the 5th, and on the 5th she did actually fire him as well, on the basis that he suggested to her that maybe she shouldn't be admitting that she had sent death threats. Because that sort of thing, judges don't really, like people to admit to doing. It's not really the sort of thing you want somebody who's apparently suing someone else. It's just messy. It's just very, very messy to kind of suddenly have this person who's actually not the knight in shining armour that you would possibly expect. So there was that, and after she had fired the fifth lawyer, the judge gave her 2 months to get a new lawyer and prepare for the case properly. Now, it was Monday, so 25th was the due date. So by the end, I would assume the end of play on the 25th, she would have had to reply to the court summons to say, here's my evidence, here's my new lawyer. She didn't do that. So Leonard French has now filed for default. It's basically sort of a default win. Basically to say, that the person on the other hand, the accuser, hasn't come forward to state any new evidence. So the judge is now sort of being petitioned to do a sort of a default judgment, whether it be that it's just over with and done, and the copyright resides with Imagos, or he could go further. He could ask that Alex Mayer pay the court charges, or, and this is the bit where it starts to get interesting. You see, all those DMCAs that Alex Mayer filed, it wasn't just 70 at the start. It was over 100, well over 100, that she ended up filing to various different people. Every single one of those DMCAs, you have to sign a legal document that basically says that you are doing this because you believe this copyright to be your own. And you should probably have some proof of this. And failure to do so, all those DMCAs she filed, technically it's perjury. Now, whether or not a YouTuber would take someone to court over that, it's not really been done so much. There was the H3H3 case, but the amount of cases that kind of get pulled up with this, it's very, very limiting. So the judge could actually say that all these DMCAs was actually perjury, and each one of those perjury is a few months in prison for those perjuries, for each perjury. But that's not all of it. You see, she was also sending death threats and contacting people at their house. Anti-music. Anti-hero. Oh god. Musical Antihero. That's the one. Musical Antihero received a phone call from Alex Mayer, who was not particularly happy with his coverage of the situation, and that was apparently the one where he asked her if she wanted to go for coffee with him. Because why not? So those people could actually have a case against her, and the perjury bit carries a few months in prison. The death threats, each one could potentially carry some years in prison. That's it. That's even if the judge wants to take it that far. It could be just on the basis that her mental state is not good, and maybe it's best to just kind of leave sleeping lions lie, and just say, look, the license is with Imagos, don't contact them again, sort of thing. Even so, I would expect that her reputation is now mud. It could be very, very difficult for her to find another job, because who would want to hire somebody who is as unstable as that they will start sending death threats and DMCAs to customers? It's, not good. And all that I can really say with this entire situation is that I don't necessarily blame Alex for doing this. I understand that when you're so caught up with everything that's happening to you, you can kind of start slipping down a very, very dark path. And it takes quite a lot to kind of wake up and see what you've done. And it may not really wanting to take it any further, that seems to have come from Alex recently, may just simply be that she's waking up to what she's done, and that actually she needs to back off, and she just needs to go quiet for a bit and sort herself out. But, we will see what happens. There's also the whole contempt of court thing, which could be an issue, on the basis that she hasn't bothered to respond to the court summons. But again, that's an issue for the judge, just to see what he decides is fair, I guess. And he may just decide that, let's just leave it as it is. Let's just, ensure and enshrine in law the fact that this copyright belongs to Imagos. But anyway, that's the situation as it stands, and we'll see ultimately. But with that, I'll say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.